This is not a pandemic. This is not 2020. This is the summer of 2025, and airports in the US are gradually sinking into silence. What really happened?
There was nobody there. There was nobody in my row. It was really shocking. I've never been on a flight like that.
Stunning images of near-empty passenger planes are popping up on social media. These international flights have many tourists flying to the USA practically alone.
If you're planning to fly to the U.S. this summer, you might notice fewer flight options.
No ban has been issued. No virus has returned. Yet 3 million international tourists from Canada, the UK, Europe have quietly cancelled their trips. A series of the largest airports in the United States are eerily quiet. Cities that once thrived on tourism are now counting the days to survive. From New York to Los Angeles, from Las Vegas to Orlando, the airports are gradually becoming deserted. Flights from Toronto, London, and Tokyo are being cancelled or delayed continuously. Even Americans are stopping flying. The TSA recorded a decline in passenger numbers for the first time since the pandemic. In today's video, we will go through 15 airports in the US that are on the brink of collapse as millions of travelers withdraw. A big question arises. Why is the whole world quietly withdrawing from the United States? And is the airport in your state the next name to be erased from the international travel map? Don't take your eyes off it. JFK, once congested with the influx of people coming to America, now eerily quiet as if a global evacuation had just occurred. Once dubbed the gateway to America, where thousands of passengers from all continents are welcomed every day. An airport bustling like a world fair, where luggage never stops sliding and the loudspeakers never rest. Now, stepping through the cold glass doors, you only hear the sound of your own footsteps echoing among the rows of dust-covered seats. It's not that the airport is closed, but it was desolate, as if the whole world had quietly turned its back. No more children's voices chirping, asking their mothers, "Does Disney really have a castle?" No longer are there lines of people anxiously holding their passports, eagerly waiting to touch the American dream. In 2025, New York is expected to lose more than 3 million international tourists. And following them is $25 billion, silently disappearing from the city's economy, without a sound, without a warning. No one makes reservations at Le Bernardin. No one stands in line at the Guggenheim. No one wanders down Fifth Avenue with designer bags hanging from their arms. A woman from England shared, "I used to fly to New York every 2 years to see Broadway, but this year, I cancelled the trip. Not because I fear America, but because America no longer welcomes me as before." It's not just a cancelled trip. It's a relationship fracturing between the US and the rest of the world. If JFK, the heart of American international travel, is still so quiet. So, at the smaller airports, which rely solely on tourists, what is happening? This silence, is it temporary? Or is it the bell tolling for a decade-long farewell? But if JFK is the heart, then LAX, the western lung, is gasping in a different way. And the story there will make you even more startled. At LAX airport, a celebrity appears every minute. But this summer, all one sees are empty rows of seats and a long board of cancelled flights, like a sad news report. Once a symbol of the American dream, of California dreaming, of golden sunshine and blue oceans, LAX is now as gloomy as the set of a film that has been cancelled. The flight between Toronto and LAX, one of the busiest routes in the world, has now cut its capacity by 76%. A shock for anyone who ever believed that Canadian tourists will always come to California. Why? The first reason, the Canadian government issued a travel advisory for the US, causing many citizens to be wary of shootings, unrest, and the decline in services. Secondly, the Canadian dollar is weaker, making everything in Los Angeles absurdly expensive. And finally, the feeling of no longer being safe is what makes many people abandon the journey. A businessman from Toronto, who used to take his whole family to LA every year, shared, "Hotel prices in Santa Monica are 40% higher than before the pandemic, but the service has worsened." I don't want to buy a feeling of anxiety for thousands of dollars. This turning away does not stem from political disputes or visa issues, but it comes from something much more dangerous: loss of trust. The total number of international visitors to LA dropped by more than 30% in just the first half of 2025, the worst decline on the West Coast, surpassing even San Francisco and Seattle. Interestingly, Canada, a country with one of the closest relationships with the US, is now the country that has cut the most flights to the US. This is not due to disputes, but due to a loss of trust. LAX, once the red carpet of the American tourism industry, now resembles a movie theater that no one enters. The boarding gates close like the curtain has fallen when the lights go out and the audience no longer comes. If even the closest neighbor leaves, then who will America still hold on to? LAX is losing its luster. But in Orlando, what is disappearing is the twinkling eyes of children seeing the Disney castle for the first time. When a trip to Disney becomes a luxury, then perhaps the American dream is truly changing color. Orlando, the capital of childhood, where millions of families from around the world once came to meet Mickey Mouse and the princesses, has now become eerily empty. Disney World, where reservations used to be required 3 months in advance, now has days, with still available tickets. Orlando International Airport recorded the worst decline in international passengers in a decade, right in the middle of the summer travel peak season. A mother in Texas once promised her 7-year-old son, if he studies well, he will go to Disney in the summer. But when calculating the costs, over $2,800 for airfare, hotel, and admission tickets, she had to stop. She said, "I lied to you that Disney was under renovation. I didn't have the courage to tell the truth. I can't afford it." A trip to Orlando is no longer a reward for well-behaved children during summer vacation. It has become a financial challenge for the whole family. Airplane tickets have increased by 45% compared to 2019. Hotel prices in the Disney area have nearly doubled. Tickets to the park and food expenses added up to a dream installment plan. Inflation doesn't just eat into wallets, it also devours the childhoods of children who can no longer travel like their parents once did. According to local reports, many hotels in the area have not reached sufficient capacity to maintain stable operations for the first time since COVID-19. Nearly 1/3 of the searches for Orlando trip on Google were cancelled during the ticket booking period at the end of the first quarter of this year. Disney World, once a castle of joy, now resembles a dusty crown, placed amidst walls of exorbitant prices. The entrance is still open, the music still plays, but the smiles now belong to a different class, the class that can afford it. In some states, people are currently paying in installments, even for fast food meals. So, let me ask, who still thinks about taking their kids to Disney? When was the last time you took your child, grandchild, or family on a trip? Are we witnessing the quiet disappearance of the American childhood dream? Please share your thoughts. McCarran, the airport that once welcomed a multitude of international travelers to Las Vegas, the city of parties, lights, and no sleep, now finds itself in an incredibly desolate state. Lines of people waiting for taxis, groups of guests pulling suitcases into the casino. Now, only the vast parking lot remains, with no one stepping out. Las Vegas, an unadvertised icon, is gradually being forgotten. A single mother in Vancouver used to call Las Vegas her personal reward every year. But this year, everything has changed. She shared, "I used to feel that Vegas was a place where I could be free, be myself. But this year, I didn't buy a ticket. I no longer feel welcomed by America." That statement, uttered gently, but enough to make many Americans feel uneasy. It is estimated that the number of visitors to Las Vegas in the second quarter of 2025 will decrease by 8%, equivalent to hundreds of thousands of tourists disappearing. Revenue from major casinos has decreased by more than 5%, leading to a series of restaurants, bars, and souvenir shops having to reduce staff or close early. Las Vegas has no shortage of hotels, no shortage of events, but it's lacking trust. A series of news reports about safety issues, thefts, and altercations around the Strip area have left many international tourists feeling uneasy. Meanwhile, airfare and accommodation costs in Vegas have increased by 25 to 35% after the pandemic. General sentiment: if I have to risk my wallet and safety, then I will choose another destination. It's hard to believe. The place that used to be a paradise for spontaneous trips has now become an option that people have to consider. Las Vegas, once a never-ending play of lights, now like a stage lit up but without an audience. Party airport, where every journey begins with a smile, now silent like a bar forgotten at dawn. When a place once called the world's resort is no longer an option, what will be the next limit? Do you feel that America is drifting further away from those who once loved it the most? Denver International Airport, once the busiest transit hub in the western United States, where every cross-country journey had to stop, is now reducing flights, cutting staff, and seeing a drop in passengers right in the middle of peak season. This is the first time since the pandemic that domestic traffic at Denver Airport has declined for 3 consecutive quarters, without any health crisis, snowstorms, or sanctions. The most surprising thing is, even Americans have stopped flying. Unusual, but not too hard to understand. When inflation erodes income, visiting family or going on business trips is no longer a weekend affair. Domestic ticket prices have increased by an average of 26% compared to last year, but the service has worsened with more delayed flights. Many people now choose to drive for 12 hours rather than fly for 2 hours with 3 delays and lost luggage. Denver, once the heart of domestic connectivity, now finds itself in a paradox. A system built to connect Americans is being abandoned by Americans themselves. An IT employee in Phoenix used to fly from Denver to Chicago for work twice a month. Now, he holds online meetings and drives himself when necessary. He stated, "I have lost faith in domestic airlines. No one told me when the flight was cancelled. No one apologized when I missed the event. The anger here is not an incident. It is the feeling of being abandoned by the very system one once trusted." It is estimated that Denver lost more than 1.2 million domestic visitors in the first half of 2025, despite the expansion of the terminal. The rate of delayed or cancelled connections here has increased by 18%, causing many passengers to choose to avoid Denver altogether if possible. Notably, the TSA checkpoint in Denver has recorded a decrease in passenger numbers for 3 consecutive quarters, the first time since 9/11. That shows this crisis does not come from the outside, but from within. Denver, the transit heart of America, now resembles a gas station with a clogged circuit, where people pass through only to find a way out, to retreat. The corridors that were once filled with footsteps are now only filled with the sound of the end-of-day vacuum cleaner and the announcement of cancelled flights. When Americans themselves no longer believe in domestic travel, is America losing its ability to connect with itself? Have you ever cancelled a flight because you felt flying wasn't worth it anymore? Let us know the reason and your feelings by leaving a comment below this video. Seattle is still the tech capital, but its airport is gradually becoming an unmanned station. Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, once the most dynamic trade gateway in the Pacific Northwest, is now becoming strange, quiet, desolate, and stripped of major international flight routes. Flights from Tokyo, Seoul, London, once fully booked, now have only a few scattered rows of seats. A once bustling airport filled with tourists and global tech experts now feels frozen in the middle of summer. A software engineer from Tokyo, who used to fly to Seattle every year for a technology conference. This year, his company moved the entire conference to Singapore. He shared, "The reasons lie in high costs, unstable connections, and the inconvenience of leaving the airport. Seattle is a place where the dream of innovation meets stunning nature, but it is also a place caught in a double bind of worry. The severe homelessness crisis has spread to the area near the airport, making many international tourists feel unsafe. Additionally, hotel prices are rising, consumer taxes are high, And there are many travel warnings from Asia and Europe targeting cities with increasing urban crime rates. Seattle, the city known as where clouds meet technology, now has an airport shrouded in mist, just like the gloomy fog that blankets the Puget Sound region. The lights are still on, the system is still running, but there's a lack of people, a lack of hope, and a lack of reason to come. For the first time in 15 years, Seattle is no longer in the top 10 airports chosen for transit to the US from Asia. A silent fall, but a concerning warning. If an innovation hub like Seattle, which is constantly evolving, is witnessing a setback at its airport, then where is safe in the American tourism industry? Do you think international tourists are leaving, or are they just pausing and not coming back? O'Hare, a name synonymous with flight delays and the airport that never sleeps, now witnesses many departure gates closing in the middle of the day, shops no longer open 24/7, and taxi wait times shortening alarmingly simply because there are no passengers. International visitors from Europe have sharply decreased, especially from Germany, the UK, and Italy, due to stricter visa policies and the less appealing image of the United States. Even domestic American travelers have decreased due to rising ticket prices, high delays, and dissatisfaction after numerous airline incidents. In addition, airlines prioritize smaller airports with lower costs. Even domestic American travelers have decreased due to rising ticket prices, high delays, and dissatisfaction after numerous airline incidents. In addition, airlines prioritize smaller airports with lower costs. Notably, some major airlines are considering moving their hubs from O'Hare to smaller airports like Minneapolis due to lower costs and less chaos. Once again, Chicago is being outdone in silence, not by rivals, but by its own internal decline. O'Hare, once a global crossroads, now resembles a toll booth in the desert, where vehicles used to line up. Now only the dust and wind remain silent. The plane is still parked, the door still turns, but the bustling feeling, the feeling of being at the center of the world, has vanished. If aviation hubs like Chicago also start to be avoided, then what will be the last pillar to keep the heartbeat of US tourism? Have you ever been stuck at O'Hare? Now imagine an O'Hare without congestion, because there are no more people arriving. Honolulu, the capital of honeymoons, which once welcomed millions of Asian tourists each year, has now become as quiet as a landscape painting placed in a dusty frame. At Daniel K. Inouye International Airport, the international flight electronic boards are displaying more blank spaces than ever before. Flights from Tokyo, Seoul, and Taipei, which are the backbone of Hawaii's tourism industry, have sharply decreased, sometimes down to only 2 flights per day. Asian tourists are increasingly concerned about rising costs and the lack of warmth in their experiences. Meanwhile, the Hawaii state government tightened tax policies, increased accommodation fees, and began limiting guests due to the previous tourism overload. The controversies surrounding cultural issues, the backlash against tourists, combined with the image of an unstable America, have created an invisible gap between Hawaii and the rest of the world. A paradise still beautiful, but perhaps no longer friendly. The total number of international visitors to Hawaii has decreased by more than 36% compared to before the pandemic, mainly from Asia. Honolulu Airport has lost nearly 40 international flights per week compared to the same period in 2019. Statewide tourism revenue dropped by nearly $3 billion in just 12 months. Notably, in 2025, the number of Japanese tourists to Hawaii dropped to the lowest level in over 30 years, even lower than after the 2008 financial crisis. Notably, in 2025, the number of Japanese tourists to Hawaii dropped to the lowest level in over 30 years, even lower than after the 2008 financial crisis. A seemingly small drop, but it strikes at the very foundation of this island nation's tourism. Hawaii, once the pearl necklace of the Pacific, now like a gem fallen from a necklace, lying silently among the white sands, with no one bending down to pick it up. The beach is still there, the waves still sing, but no more footprints in the sand. If a place like Hawaii, without war, without violence, without distance, is still being left behind, then where does the real reason lie? Is America no longer a destination, but a memory? Can you imagine a place with 300 sunny days a year, once an ideal winter destination? Now the airport is deserted in the middle of the tourist season. Phoenix Sky Harbor, one of the fastest growing airports of the past decade, is now witnessing a steep decline in international passenger numbers. Flights from Canada, Arizona's traditional winter market, have been cut by nearly 70% on some routes. No more scenes of tourists strolling in the warm sun. The airport has become a giant waiting station, with no one waiting anymore. In Phoenix, the outdoor temperature reaches 40 degrees, but inside the airport, it's chillingly cold, due to the emptiness. Arizona used to be a winter paradise for Canadians and Northern Europeans. Dry climate, moderate costs, and vast spaces. But then, everything suddenly turned upside down. The Canadian government has issued a travel advisory to the US, directly affecting Phoenix, which has the largest Canadian retiree community in the Southwest. The anxiety and fear of emergency medical costs make elderly tourists hesitant to return. Additionally, Phoenix lacks cultural highlights, culinary experiences, or new attractions, causing international visitors to now choose Mexico or Southern Europe. A place once chosen for its sunshine and tranquility, now abandoned for being unfriendly and monotonous. Phoenix, the city of the sun and shimmering deserts, now resembles an unvisited winter resort, full of light, but lacking the warmth of human presence. Sky Harbor Airport now resembles a deserted resort during peak season. If those who once considered Phoenix their winter home now turn their backs, then who will keep the fire alive for the sunny city? Do you believe that one day, even the sunlight won't be enough to keep tourists? Do you believe that one day, even sunlight won't be enough to keep tourists? A place that once taught the world about enlightenment, revolution, and modern thinking is now quietly crossed off the itineraries of millions of international tourists. Boston Logan, the airport associated with Harvard, MIT, freedom, and American history, is witnessing a steady decline in international passengers despite no apparent crisis. An airport of knowledge, now there are no more people coming to learn, reflect, or walk on the historical paths. In the past year, international students have sharply decreased due to strict visa policies, rising tuition costs, and competition from countries like Canada, Australia, and the Netherlands. Many cultural exchange programs and scholarships have also been cut or redirected away from the US. Boston still holds value, but fewer people come to appreciate that value now. Boston, the city of red bricks bearing the marks of revolution and enlightenment, now resembles a beautifully quiet, well-preserved ancient library, but without any readers. Logan Airport, once a welcoming place for curious minds, has now become a stopover for delayed or forgotten journeys. If a city that once birthed the idea of American freedom is now forgotten, then how many other American values will disappear next? Have you ever dreamed of Boston? And now, do you still want to go? Salt Lake City International, an airport that was once an important transit hub between the West Coast and the inland states, has now become an unusually empty space. International flights, which were already few, are now even scarcer. Even domestic routes from Seattle, LA, and Denver have been cut. The airport remains clean. The system is still operational, but people are no longer coming. The decline in domestic tourism has led airlines to eliminate routes to unprofitable regions. The cost of flying to small cities like Salt Lake has doubled because there are no longer enough passengers to share the expenses. Additionally, many people who once chose Utah for backpacking or vacations are now turning to Colorado, Montana, or even Canada, where tourism infrastructure is being reinvested. When no longer a transit stop, Utah is at risk of being erased from the aviation map. Salt Lake, a tranquil lake amidst the Red Rock Desert, now reflects the image of an airport standing still in the wind, as if waiting for a group of travelers who will no longer arrive. The airport is like a train station left at the end of the map. Still open, still lit, but no one passes by anymore. When a place once called the quiet gem of America also falls into silence, where else is safe from the wave of contraction in air travel? Have you ever quietly chosen a place like Utah? And if not, maybe now you no longer have that opportunity. Charlotte Douglas International, one of the busiest domestic airports in the eastern United States, where hundreds of thousands of passengers transfer each year, has now become surprisingly quiet. Night flights are decreasing. Many restaurants in the airport have shortened their operating hours due to a lack of customers. A bustling bus stop has now become a place where employees leave even earlier than closing time. Charlotte once thrived thanks to its role as a strategic hub, a stopover connecting north to south, east to west. But 2025 brings a harsh reality. Americans are flying less. Both leisure and business travel have decreased due to costs, fatigue with poor service and delays. Airlines prioritize larger airports like Atlanta, Dallas, and Chicago to gather passengers, cutting operational costs at mid-sized hubs like Charlotte. The old hub and spoke model no longer aligns with the new flying behavior. Fewer connections, preference for direct flights, cheaper, shorter. Charlotte is not less capable, but she was pushed to the sidelines by the very old model she depended on. Charlotte is like a large bus station with reduced routes, still lit, but lacking the sound of people. An airport that was once the crossroads of the South, now empty like an alley blocked on Google Maps. When a hub like Charlotte is also losing its lifeline, what is happening to the cities you can no longer fly directly to? Have you ever had a layover in Charlotte? And now, do you still see that name appearing in the schedule? From JFK to Honolulu, from Charlotte to Salt Lake. The airports that once symbolized movement, connection, and the American dream are now deserted in the middle of summer. This is not just a decline in tourism. This is a quiet signal of a trust that is fracturing. Do you feel this in the place where you live? Is the airport near you still as busy as before? Or is it gradually sinking into silence? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. We read everything. If you find topics like this important, please hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next videos. All data and observations in the video are compiled from public reports, independent research, and user feedback. This video is not intended to make absolute claims, but to open up a discussion perspective. We encourage viewers to verify the information and share their real-life experiences.